All right, everyone, welcome back. NBA's back, baby. Opening night. And we're kicking things off with a deep dive into Mavericks versus Spurs, October 24th, 2024. Coming into this game, you got to be ready to drop some knowledge on your friends at the watch party, right?
Yeah, gotta come in prepared. And that's where we come in. We're going beyond the box score, looking at those predictions, odds, and storylines around these teams.
So let's set the scene, all right? Games at American Airlines Center, Dallas. 7:03 p.m. Eastern. Those tuning in, catch it on TNT. Both teams 0-0, clean slate, anything could happen, which is what makes opening night so exciting. But before we get too hyped up, I got to ask, what's the word on the street about these teams? What's the buzz?
Well, let's start with the Mavericks, coming in hot after reaching the NBA Finals last season. And they made a huge move in the offseason, trading for Klay Thompson.
Wait, hold up, seriously. Thompson is joining Doncic and Irving.
You heard right.
Talk about an offensive powerhouse.
Exactly. It's what everyone's talking about. But here's the catch. There are questions about how these three stars will mesh, right? Can they share the ball? Will their playing styles even work together?
Interesting. So some big question marks there. Now, what about the Spurs? They're going up against potentially a super team. What's their deal?
Last season, well, it was a tough one for them, no doubt. But they managed to secure the #1 draft pick, Victor Wembanyama.
Wembanyama, oh man. I don't follow the draft too closely, but even I've seen the hype. The guy looks unreal. But is he ready for this? Rookie season, new team, going up against a team like Dallas.
Yeah.
Is that too much pressure?
He's got immense potential, for sure. But you're right, it's a lot to ask of a rookie. The Spurs, though, they've made some smart moves, bringing in veterans like Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes to support him. So it's this mix of young talent and seasoned experience that makes them so interesting. Kind of a wild card.
All right, so we've got a potential super team, Dallas, with some chemistry questions. And on the other side, the Spurs, young and unpredictable, led by a phenom. This is shaping up to be a good one. But what are the experts saying? Who do they think will win?
Well, if you look at the betting odds, it's pretty clear the Mavericks are the favorites. Most sources have them at a 7.5-point spread.
Okay, hold on. Time out. I got to admit, sometimes all this betting talk goes right over my head. Can you break down what a 7.5-point spread actually means for someone like me?
Sure. Basically, it means the experts think the Mavericks are going to win by more than 7.5 points. So if you were betting and put your money on the Mavs, they'd need to win by 8 points or more for you to win your bet. Essentially, it's a measure of how confident the experts are in a team's victory.
Gotcha. So a bigger spread means a more confident prediction. Makes sense. But I'm guessing not everyone agrees on this, right? There's always someone who goes against the grain.
Oh, absolutely. And in this case, while most predictions have the Mavs winning comfortably, one source leans towards the Spurs, saying they might cover the spread, maybe even pull off an upset.
Now, that's what I'm talking about. That's why we watch the games.
Yeah.
So the Spurs, they could be a real threat.
Right. And that goes back to what we were saying earlier. They're unpredictable. Wembanyama has a big game, the veterans step up, and they could definitely surprise people.
This is already more interesting than I thought. So we've got the odds, conflicting predictions, and those storylines we talked about. But what are some of the key stats and trends we should be looking out for? What will help us make sense of it all?
Well, one source pointed out that the Mavericks have a pretty impressive track record in recent night games against the Spurs.
So even though it's a new season, history still matters, right? Like there might be a psychological factor at play.
Exactly. Maybe the Mavericks just have the Spurs number, you know? Another stat, this time favoring the Spurs, is the Mavericks' implied point total for this game. It's actually slightly lower than their average from last season.
Implied point total? That sounds like a fancy way of saying how many points they're expected to score.
You got it. And in this case, it means the experts think the Mavs offense might not be as explosive as usual in this particular matchup. Could be due to the new roster, still figuring things out.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how they adjust, with the new guy in the mix.
Right.
And speaking of scoring, we talked about that over-under earlier. Remember, that's that combined score prediction?
Yeah.
And it's set at 232.5 for this game, which is pretty high. Suggests we might see a shootout,
Ooh, I like a high-scoring game.
And one source pointed out that both the Mavs and the Spurs, they tended to go over their predicted point totals last season. So that could be a good sign for anyone thinking about betting the over in this matchup.
Okay, all this betting talk, it's a little over my head if I'm being honest.
Oh, sure.
But it sounds like these stats and trends are pointing towards a high-scoring, maybe even a close game, right? Yeah. It seems like the experts think the Mavericks have the edge overall, but the Spurs have the potential to keep it close.
Right.
And we can't forget about that human element, right?
Yeah.
Players exceeding expectations, stepping up, having a career night. You never know.
Absolutely. That's what makes sports so exciting. You just never know what's going to happen.
Right. And especially in a season opener, right?
Yeah.
Both teams are going to be fired up, ready to make a statement.
Absolutely. The energy in the arena is going to be electric. Okay, but let's zoom in on those individual players for a sec.
Yeah.
We talked about the big names, Doncic, Irving, Thompson, Wembanyama. What are some specific things we should watch for from them in this matchup? Give me the inside scoop.
Well, for the Mavericks, I think it all comes down to chemistry. How well are Doncic and Irving going to share the ball? Will Thompson be able to fit into their system, or will there be some growing pains? I think those are the big questions.
Yeah, it's like on paper, this Mavericks team looks unstoppable, but will it actually work on the court?
Exactly. And then there's Wembanyama. The guy's a physical anomaly, right? 7'5" with guard-like skills. I can't wait to see how he matches up against a seasoned defender like Dorian Finney-Smith.
Ooh. That's a matchup I'll definitely be watching.
Yeah, it'll be a chess match for sure.
For sure.
And we can't forget about Chris Paul on the Spurs, right?
Oh, yeah.
Future Hall of Famer. Even though he's not in his prime anymore, he's still a brilliant floor general.
Yeah.
I think he could cause some problems for the Mavericks with his playmaking and leadership.
See, this is what I love about these deep dives.
Yeah.
It's not just about the final score,
Right.
It's about understanding the nuances, those matchups, the little things that can shift the game.
Yeah, it's about seeing the game through a different lens, and that's what we're trying to do here.
Absolutely.
Give you the tools to appreciate all those layers of the game.
Okay, so we've covered the odds, the predictions, storylines, the stats, those exciting matchups. But before we wrap up, let's bring it back to the listener.
Yeah.
The person who's actually going to be watching this game. What's the one thing you want them to keep in mind? The one question they should be asking themselves as they watch the Mavs and the Spurs go head-to-head?
Well, for me, the big question is, will the Mavericks' new super team, will they live up to the hype right away?
Right out the gate.
Will we see that offensive explosion that everyone's predicting, or will it take some time for them to gel?
Ooh, that's a good one. And, I'm also curious to see if Wembanyama can handle the pressure, right? Being the #1 pick, going up against a championship contender in his first NBA game ever, can he and the Spurs pull off an upset?
It's going to be fascinating to see, that's for sure. And, all these predictions and this analysis, it's just a starting point. It's really up to the players to write the story of this game.
Absolutely. We can talk all day about stats and trends, but at the end of the day, it's those players on the court who create the magic.
Yeah, it's what makes sports so captivating, right? You just never truly know what's going to happen.
So true.
So when you're watching the Mavericks versus the Spurs, keep all this stuff we talked about in mind, but also be open to the unexpected.
Yeah, pay attention to those matchups, those key moments that shift the momentum. Look for those flashes of brilliance that remind us why we love this game.
Because those are the moments that make a deep dive truly rewarding. Those aha moments when you see the game through a new lens.
Yeah. And hey, maybe you'll even impress your friends with all your newfound basketball wisdom.
That's right.
Who knows? Maybe you'll even start making your own predictions.
Until next time, enjoy the game.
We'll see you next time.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.